Hi, I'm Justin Mason at Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. And before we get started, make sure you hit subscribe as we have some really cool content coming down the pipeline. And if you're new to this channel, definitely check out some of our older videos. Beside me today is a 2016 Jaguar F-Type R. Now I know it's not a Lexus, but we're changing things up a little bit here, and this was traded in on a new Lexus, and it impressed me so much that I thought I have to do a video on this because there is a lot of this car that I didn't know from the past. The only thing I knew about the F-Type was actually the engine noise. I always loved that driving behind one, or when I hear one started up, you could kind of hear the fact that it sounds like a cat, like a wild cat roar, like a Jaguar in the jungle. I always thought that was really cool. It was one of the best sounding V8s that I ever heard. So really excited to have one here and be able to play with it a little bit. Speaking of V8s, so yes, this has a 550 horsepower supercharged V8 with an 8-speed automatic transmission, which brings the 0 to 60 time to like 3.8 seconds, which is really fast. In fact, it's so fast that a lot of YouTube reviewers, when I was researching this car, didn't call it a sports car, actually. They called it a supercar, which I thought was really cool because I always thought it was kind of like a sports car. Let me know what you think in the comments. Is it a sports car or is it a supercar? But anyway, this one has all-wheel drive, which is great for all that horsepower to be able to put down onto the road and be able to propel forward because it needs it, absolutely. So, taking a look at the front, we have this massive hood with some vents on there as well, which really give it that European, sporty supercar look. Gorgeous headlights with the daytime running light kind of wrapping down the side in 2016. That was up with the times. I wouldn't say it was super future forward, but it definitely looked the price tag at least. Now looking at that front bumper, a couple things that I really love that stand out. One of them is the actual Jaguar emblem itself is really cool because in a world where most car brands just use silver or gray or black as their emblem, this one having that red around the face of the Jaguar is really cool, and you can also tell that there's a lot of detail there. The creases in the face, all of those little things didn't need to be there, but are there. And I think that's really, really cool. Same with the R badge off to the side here. We see some colors there, which is quite nice as well. Now, zooming out and just seeing that front bumper, so it is, very misleading because at first, it really makes the front end of the car look small because everything really tapers down to a very small opening. But then when you look at that opening, you see these little vents that kind of, shape. The shape kind of tells you that they're going to be cutting that air, sucking in all that air for that supercharged V8. And it's really nice because when you start at the front and zoom out, you can really tell how wide that car opens up. And it is really wide. And actually, that was one of the things that I noticed right away was, as we were pulling it into the showroom, we're so used to pulling in the same cars, RX, the occasional LC, the occasional LX, and it's always been kind of a measuring stick for us for how wide a car is. And the Jaguar is misleadingly wide, which I really like. I think that's really cool. Okay, so we have the big brake kit on it, or I guess it comes factory with big brakes, carbon ceramic, which makes sense because that 0 to 60 time of 3.8 seconds, you obviously want to stop quite quickly. Kind of up from that wheel, we have the Jaguar spelled out there with, again, that little side that we see in so many European cars. And the silhouette itself is very interesting because the roof is lower, and it's a carbon fiber roof, by the way, on this package, which, if you didn't have the carbon fiber roof, it would be just a glass roof. But that roof is really low when you look at it. I'm 6'1", and I look kind of like a giant beside this car. So that's just like a really, I don't know, it's just really cool to see, I guess you could say. So very low hung sort of, side profile. And it's cool because as that side profile flows to the back, it does turn into a hatchback, which I'll show you that opening in a second, and then kind of just stops off as like this stubby, true two-seater sports car, supercar, whatever you want to call it. Also, all the chrome is not chrome, it's kind of just blacked out, which is nice. And we see door handles like we do in the LC. But one of the coolest things about the outside of this vehicle, which I forgot about, is this. When you open up the hood, it opens this way. which I don't know why I love that so much, but when you zoom out and look at the car from far away, it looks really, really sharp. Because we're so used to, the way hoods open up in North America, that having it tilt the opposite way, I know it sounds silly, but to me it's just super, super cool. Now looking under the hood, probably this makes it really hard to work on. That's the, not that I'm a mechanic, but that's the mechanic in me saying, it would be hard to reach all of this stuff, but based on my research, I think it's not too bad in terms of reliability and maintenance, these cars. So not a whole lot to look at under the hood itself. A couple Jaguar emblems, some plastic pieces. We're kind of used to that at Lexus, so nothing super, super different about that. Making our way to kind of the back corner of it. So taking a look at the back, one of the really interesting details that I wouldn't have noticed before is this quarter panel on each side of the hatch is massive. Like, it kind of goes all the way to the center, and then there's just one little section of power tailgate. Now, it is cool that it is a hatchback instead of just a regular trunk. It is quite narrow, but I did read online that you could fit 2 golf bags in it. I think definitely 1 golf bag, maybe 2, depending on the size, or if you have one of those big cart bags or like one of those smaller like slung ones. But there is a trunk there, and interesting enough, this is also where you fill up your washer fluid, which I thought was kind of funny. I've never seen one in the back before. Then we have this little skid plate that says Jaguar on it, and I think just a little fake floor where there's like a little tire repair kit because of it being run flats. But it is power. You can press it, it'll go down, and at least be able to, carry a few groceries or something like that. But even furthermore at the back, we have quad exhaust that sound, like I said, absolutely amazing, with a sort of diffuser and rear spoiler down there that kind of just accentuates that supercar design. But does it pass the taillight test? Let's see. So this is very, signature to Jaguar. Our actual taillight is this line that kind of wraps around here. And then the signal or the 4-ways is kind of just the blinking part above it. That's something I do always like to turn on when I check out a car, because when you're car shopping, you don't necessarily see the signals. And sometimes it's a really cool part of the car. And actually, there is a car in our Lexus lineup that has gorgeous signal lights that not a lot of people know until after they buy it or they see one driving. So I always like to point that out. Okay, so inside there is a lot to unpack. But first, we are in Canada, so we need to see, does it fit a Tim Hortons coffee cup? So we're just gonna open up the cup holders and see, and it does. So it passed that test. Passed the Canadian test. Okay, everything else. So the first thing you notice when you get in is the shape of the steering wheel. It kind of has that flat bottom, which is really nice. Picture of a Jaguar, and the horn doesn't sound too pipsqueaky. So that's actually a good thing, I guess. We do have some steering wheel controls on here, cruise controls, heated steering wheel button is actually on the steering wheel. The paddle shifters feel to be metal, and they are a little smaller, but they're positioned well. There is that spot on the steering wheel to be able to like wrap your thumbs around, which I really like. The thing about European cars is I never know where to look for the push button. This one is right here kind of in the center, so we're just gonna press that a few times, and that is going to wake up all of the buttons and switches that we have, because there are a lot of them. So right beside the shift knob, we have the different drive modes. And it's interesting because sort of the way that the switch works is the platform around the switch actually stays stationary, and then the switch part itself slides on that platform, which is, something maybe you would miss if not paying attention, but I noticed it right away. And that changes it from, dynamic mode to regular mode to a snow and rain mode, which is all pretty self-explanatory. That dynamic mode also turns on the valves in the exhaust to make the engine or the exhaust notes more loud. And there is a button for that standalone as well. So you can do that, from what I can tell, in every mode. And that's just right here, kind of just below the shifter. To the left of that, we can turn the traction control off. With the car started, of course. And then we also have the auto start-stop feature that you can override from here as well. And to the right of that, we have an active wing that we can turn on and up, and that lifts up from the back And if you didn't know, if someone didn't show you that, you wouldn't even know that there was an active wing there. So that's really cool. To the right of that, I don't know, there's like a little change holder, maybe just like a spot for your change or whatever. The volume knob is right in the center, so you don't have to like reach up to do it. You can kind of just be focused on the road, one hand on the wheel, and where your arm feels very natural, that's where the volume knob is. I always like when cars have that, and I do like when they also have a knob. To the right of that is this handle here. So I like seeing this in cars because usually it's cars that are meant to be, you know, driven spiritedly. And that's for the passenger to be able to hold on, or the driver, but the driver should have both of their hands on the wheels. The Lexus LC has this as well, and I've always thought it was well placed and well used sometimes, depending who you're driving with. To the left of that and above the volume knob, there is a cover for a cigarette outlet or 12-volt outlet. So this car was a 2016, so it still had outlets everywhere instead of things like USB-Cs and stuff, which is fine. And then we have some switches up here for the climate control. Now, a very fun thing about the climate control that I discovered is when you press and turn on the center vents, magic happens, and the dashboard opens up to reveal 2 new vents that weren't there a second ago, which is really cool. And again, when you shut that off or when you turn off the climate control, those will go back into the dashboard. The thing I love about automotive the most is things like that where, is it super useful to hide those vents? No, but it's cool, and it's cool to show your friends. It's like a party trick. And I just love unnecessary things in cars. I think that's what separates special cars from the overly produced, boring cars. Not that I find a ton of cars boring, but that's really cool. And I love it, and I wish more cars had it. The screen, it's a 2016, so nothing super exciting here in terms of resolution, but it does have backup camera. It does have a way to pair your phone. However, it's from the center here, and I think it's a special Jaguar cable. So that is what it is. I'm not super surprised because of that, but you can access the backup camera even, you know, when parked. And there is like things like parking sensors, obviously Bluetooth, and all those things. Another cool detail that you find in high-end cars is something like how to open the glove box, for instance. And the reason I point that out is because think about it, you only go in your glove box, I don't know, is it once a month or less than that? Maybe a couple times a year. But to open the glove box on this Jaguar is this little button here. And there's something about that I find cool. It would have been so much easier for them just to use a little handle under here that, you know, was maybe mass produced for Land Rover or Ford or something like that. But instead, they have this little button. And it's just a more elegant way of opening that glove box, which we all know is only going to be used once in a while. Up on the main dashboard here, so as I mentioned, it is a small car inside, which it's supposed to be. It is a true 2-seater. It is a true sports car, supercar, whatever you want to call it. Now, what I did notice is when I have the seat all the way back, for me, I'm comfortable for sure, but the seat rubs a little bit. And I don't know if it's because this one's a little bit pre-owned, but to my left here, it is rubbing on the door panel just a little bit. So I would probably just adjust it up just a tad so I don't hear that rubbing as I'm driving. The seats overall, super comfortable. They are a little bit stiff. I think they're Recaros, but I don't see a brand yelling at me anywhere. A little bit stiff, but super comfortable, even though it's a pre-owned, you know, that seat material still held up really nicely. And I do feel very well in place. On the gauge, we don't have, you know, too much going on here, just a simple TFT display in the middle. And I think you can just control it kind of through the steering wheel here. Nothing really to write home about, just your normal stuff. Pretty simple and straightforward. And to the left of the steering wheel, we just have things like, you know, a pop for the trunk, some dimmer switches, things like that. Actually, a really cool thing about the dimmer switch is you can kind of push it back into the dash or press it again and it comes out. So that's a little detail. The seat controls are all on the door, and there actually is a decent amount there. We have lots of lumbar. We even have side bolsters, which is an important feature in a car like this because you can decide how much you want that seat to hug you. I'm super skinny, so I really like it to hug me. That way I'm not sliding around in the seat a whole lot. And I like that you can program that and also have you know, the memory setting for that as well. The sound system in here is Meridian Surround. There are a few variations of this. This one I think is the higher one. There is just a Meridian one as well. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. Again, I don't know a ton about Jaguars, just my brief little research that I've done on this one. Center mirror is pretty small, and I like it. But the thing I like most actually is the visors that come down are the smallest sun visors I've ever seen in my entire life. And I mean that. They're very skinny. They are made of like an Alcantara, very nice material. And the mirror itself is this little itty bitty, I can kind of look at my eyes if I want, or I can look at my lips, but not either one of them together. And again, I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it's kind of cute and cool. It is a very small thing inside here. So whatever makes it different, in my opinion, I like. We also have a little bit of, it's kind of like a carbon fiber vinyl applied to a lot of these interior pieces. It definitely doesn't feel like real carbon fiber. In fact, it's definitely not. It is like an exposed kind of wrap that they have on there. But overall, the interior is not too bad for what the car is. It's a driver car, so, you know, I don't see too many shortcuts in here. Everything seems to be sort of soft touch. And yeah, overall pretty good inside. So as long as you don't need a big interior in your sports car or supercar, this one is, it definitely does the trick. Even for me, I'm 6'1", I still have lots of headroom. I'm not too sure about the glass roof, but I did just notice even the material of the roof is quite nice. It's like a leather vinyl or something like that. So that'll probably hold up well over time. So there's your quick look at a 2016 Jaguar F-Type R, which, you know, depending on your budget, for being mid 60,000 at the time of filming this video, might be one of the best supercars for the money in the used car market. And as we film this one is still for sale. So if you're interested, go to performancelexus.ca, check it out, and remember to hit subscribe for more videos like this. And also, please let me know in the comments if you want to see more different brands and different cars on this YouTube channel, and I'll try to read them all and respond. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.